Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, and the time is 6:45 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order and start with A on our agenda, the review of draft ordinance concerning the regulation of natural medicine presented by City Attorney Patrick Coleman.
I guess I can start. Good evening, council. You may recall a while back.
Did you get a worksheet?
Requested that staff prepare draft regulations to regulate natural medicine, which includes psilocybin and I might have to ask Dennis how to pronounce these, but the magic mushrooms. And I worked with Lydia Regalado in my office, and she pulled together a lot of different jurisdictions' ordinances, and we came up with a draft, and that's what's on the board in front of you. And we have a draft ordinance prepared, but I put it into the form of a worksheet with some comment sections there, the blank lines. And essentially, I'm hoping the goal today is, number one, you have to have a discussion if you want to regulate natural medicine. If you don't, people can still open shops and sell it and do facilitate the use of it under the state law. And what the state did for the local governments is give us the authority to regulate time, place, and manner, which essentially means that, and I'll pull the statute, there we go. What the law does is it prohibits local governments from banning licensed facilities, services, and use of natural psychedelic substances as permitted by the constitutional amendment, while allowing the local governments to regulate the time, place, and manner and operation of these facilities. So what we've prepared for you and what's in front of you, and we broke it just down into time, place, time regulation, place regulation, and manner regulation. And time essentially is days of the week and hours of the day. What we tried to do where appropriate was make it coincide with the marijuana regulations that the city has already adopted. And so in terms of the time regulation, that's set forth before you there. It's 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Now, you don't have to adopt that, and hopefully the goal of today's workshop would be for you all, number one, to decide if you want to do any regulation, and number two, if you do, come up with some ideas of how you might want to amend any of these suggested regulations that we've presented. So I guess my thought would be start with Roman numeral 1, time regulation, and see if there's any comments or questions or problems.
I have a couple of questions and some points to bring out. So the initial, and thank you for your work and all that your staff has done to get it together and get it to this point. I think we're going to have a lot of discussion on this. And I'm interested and curious about how it's going to resolve or come about. But the first name of the article is Cortez Retail Natural Medicine. Under this, under the new constitutional amendment, it states that that this just doesn't happen to do with retail. It also has to do with cultivation and testing facilities and product manufacturing. So are we looking at these as only the side of the regulation that's going to be dealing with the healing centers or the sites of administration?
No, and that's a good catch. I think everything, including the title of the new ordinance or the new provision in the code, is up for discussion, and it would be at the council's pleasure as to what we call it. And quite honestly, I think that was just a transference of the marijuana regulation, which is called the Cortez Retail Marijuana Code.
So, okay, thank you for that.
But you're right, it deals with more than just sales.
So we may have to break this out into different sides. And in regards to your time regulation, I just wanted to kind of have a little discussion about that amongst the council and how the city's going to be looking at that. But so psilocin has a half-life, meaning half of it is out of the body in about 4 hours, depending on the method of administration. So that means if I take a drug and it goes into my system, about 4 hours later, there's going to be half of that drug still there that still has a psychological or the physiological component of that drug acting on my body. So in the case of the healing centers, which is what we're talking about here, because we're not talking about sale of psilocybin or mushrooms, unless we're talking about the distribution and cultivation side of things. So we're not going to be seeing people going into a healing center and buying mushrooms. They're only going to be going into a healing center in order to get a treatment administered to them. So this is going to be acting sort of like they like the model of a medical clinic on this one. So I'm asking the council members for their input as far as if you have people that are going into a center and it's going to close down at a certain time, we have to take into consideration that they're going to be discharged to the community while they still have some half-life, or there's a possibility of the half-life of that drug being on board. So in the medical profession, they make a point of saying if they're going to give you a sedative medicine, that you're not allowed to leave without someone driving or something like that. So I think that needs to come into our frame of looking at this when we're looking at the time. So I leave that open to discussion.
Before we get down that road, I do want to be back up and be like, retail should not be in this. None of this is retail. It's cultivation and then the medical centers, when the cultivation is for the medical centers. So I don't think we should use that word at all. And I do think we need to regulate the 3 different things separately, like cultivation, testing, and then the
Manufacturing.
centers.
The manufacturing.
That's the cultivation.
There's 4 things, yeah. So there's manufacturing, there's cultivation, and there's testing facilities, and then there's also the healing centers. So we have to look at all 4 of those aspects of it.
Okay. And then I don't know if we are the regulatory office that would decide when people leave, you know, so I think that's.
I thought, like April said, there was something like you can't leave for 4 hours or something after administering a dose. Like there's a lot of state regulations that apply to this, and like when you can leave, and I think there might have even been something about having to have a ride, like April had mentioned.
I did not see any of that in the regulation that I read through at all so far.
Well, and honestly, if most of these centers are probably, if it's the center portion, it's probably gonna just be open like 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. So I'm not against leaving that window open more, because it's not retail.
Yeah, I would agree about the time as well. I think a more limited time. I think looking at what, I don't don't even know if I would say it's suggested, because it's based on the marijuana code, but 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Sunday seems outside of a treatment schedule. I would say something like regular business hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, something like that would more reasonable.
Do we currently like regulate when doctors and other medical professions can be open?
No.
Because that's like, I feel like this ordinance, we're looking at it, you know, you use the marijuana ordinance as the same thing, but for me, thinking about the treatment centers, I'm thinking more in comparison of a medical center or doctor office, something like that. So I feel like it should be a similar regulation.
Well, and if we did keep the hour, the closing hour at 11 p.m., then they would have to regulate, right? They would give the last treatment at, say, 7 p.m., and they would close. They wouldn't be able to give the last treatment at 11 and then keep somebody there until 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning.
I think it's,
To leave if their hours of operation end at 11. And I don't know that we can, or that we have the authority to say that, yeah, you can administer this medicine right up until the time that you close.
I don't think to your point, Matt, I don't think there's any regulations that says that they have to, there's nothing out there that I've read through, and I've read through everything like crazy, that says that they have to hold them there for X amount of time afterwards, at least as far as to my knowledge, and maybe Patrick, you can look into this some more, but there's nothing in there that says they've got to keep them there until they're straight.
Yeah.
So I think we just have to take that in consideration. I don't know if we can regulate that in our time, place, and manner or not.
Yeah, I think we can. and-
Okay.
I don't believe the state has stepped into that, what appears to be possibly a void in the regulatory scheme. So, yeah, I think you could dictate, you know, I know some communities regulate last call at bars. You know, the bar has to close at 2, but sometimes they say last call at 12:30 or something. And
What does Durango do with they have therapeutic ketamine offices in Durango?
I'm not sure.
So, because
what-
I think like, once again, it's like, I guess the mindset I'm looking at isn't like the same use as like a bar where you're going to consume alcohol or marijuana to do something socially. This is more like a medical treatment to address things like PTSD and depression and anxiety. So I'd like to see more comparisons from that point of view.
Yeah, I guess I'm assuming that somebody would make an appointment to go to a facility like that versus just a walk-in. Am I wrong on that, about that?
If I can clarify something for Councilmember DeHaven, ketamine use and the like is under a MD license. It's always under an MD license. It's not like a layperson or a facilitator doing it. So it's always done into the medical specifications that are sort of guidelines that are put in place, and you're under the specifications of malpractice threat constantly. So if I give you ketamine, you're going to be signing a release, and I'm going to make sure that you're totally straight by the time you leave, and you're going to go home with the driver. None of that is in place for this drug.
And I think that is possibly one of the differences in that I don't believe these facilitators have any kind of professional liability insurance. And so certainly they may be more prone to taking risks that a doctor who pays a lot of money for their liability insurance and would prefer not to have somebody crash and burn right outside their office door. So, yeah, I think it's within the purview of the council of the city to regulate the timing. And certainly we can find more information about how the medical offices deal with that. I think Dr. Randall probably is a good resource to start with, but I'm not aware of any statutory regulations regarding the use of different types of medicine in terms of when the patient can go home. But there may be, I don't know, AMA policies or other regulatory agencies, but I don't believe local governments have stepped into that.
I guess I'm in line with Lydia that we need to approach this not as like a recreational drug use, but as a medical facility. And through that lens of like, where would we allow medical facilities? How late do we let them open? How much do we regulate like inside that?
The one difference I would say there is that for medical facilities, there are other regulatory agencies that are providing oversight. Because you have to be a doctor. I mean, if we wanted to limit it to just that, could we say we require an MD to administer this as the manner, and then it's a medical facility? Then I would feel fine that there's appropriate oversight. I feel like the state got out ahead of this and didn't do a lot of the background and basically stuck local government with figuring out how to do it. And I think we should be cautious about making sure that it is administered as a medicine and not a recreational Saturday night thing.
So I think the first wellness center is opening in downtown Denver? What regulations do they have? Have we looked into that at all?
Yeah, I don't have the Denver specific regulations, but we did look at their ordinance. I can certainly bring that up for you as we attempt to see if they address this issue at all, and if they did, how they did it. Again, we are currently under the 6-month moratorium. We have about 4 months to go, I think. So we don't have to adopt this at the next council meeting, but I would assume we can probably incorporate some of the suggestions and concerns here in a new draft and either consider it at another work session or on first reading at a subsequent hearing.
Council, I would say that I have at least 20 items that I have identified that we can look at. So I don't know that we haven't even gotten through the first one, which is time. So I think it's going to require a lot of energy and a lot of effort, and I'm not sure. I think we're being a little overly optimistic to think we're going to be able to put this up in the next couple of, even two sessions. So I would say that I have at least 20 concerns.
I don't think we're going to get this solved unless we have, as bad as I don't want to, we're going to have a special session or at least have a committee within the council to study it, decide what we're going to do. This is a sticky wicket because they've given us something to control that's beyond our control. We shouldn't be saying you can't operate between these hours and then if they're a medical facility. We shouldn't be able to say you can't be within a school. Why? It's a medical purpose. And so we have all these issues we have to look at. And I don't think we're going to get it done in a workshop and do it right. I think we're going to have to either have a group of us get together and hash it out over a couple of days, or I just don't think we're going to be able to get it done unless we do something other than just a workshop. And I think we need to be able to discuss it openly and just talk about it. In this setting, it's kind of formal, and we need a setting where we can say what we feel and what we think and what's best for the community.
So I wasn't here then, but I suspect some of you were and may even participated in the marijuana regulations. A committee was formed, it's my that's where the heavy lifting was done, I think. That's always an option if you want to create a committee and put some council members on it, and we can, treat it kind of like a mini land use code type process.
I have a couple of things to say. I think the first thing is that, and I'm probably going to say it multiple times over the process, is that we need to remember the three things that we have control over and work within that framework. I don't think it does anybody any advantage for us to, say, oh, sorry, state. We are limited in what we can cover first and foremost. And in regards to the group that met for first medical marijuana and then retail marijuana, yeah, we met for 6 months. We met twice a month and for 2 or 3 hours every Wednesday. And then that group, myself and one or two other people who are on council, came back and reported about what was discussed. And I will say it was pretty high level discussions. We had people come from Denver and tell us what are the implications of X, Y, and Z. They were the experts. They were the ones at the state level who were able to tell us what the parameters actually meant. So I think it could be advantageous, and I think it could answer a lot of those deep questions that honestly we just can't answer in a series of work sessions. So I would support that because I've seen it work before.
I would support it, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like we don't have enough background information and just research on, Oregon has also done this, and that's time consuming. We need people that can put the time in and dig deeper into this because there's a lot of unanswered questions.
I think we're gonna have a lot of varying opinions up here.
Which leads us to, if we're gonna form a work group, which is great, who is going to be on that?
I volunteer.
Okay? So-
Well, then I will too, because I think I would like to see a lot less regulations than what's proposed here, so.
And you can have, again, we can post these meetings, so if more than two of you want to do it, the public is certainly invited.
Yeah, why don't you do that as well?
Just in
Yeah,
case.
we post anyway, so.
Perfect.
I have plenty on my plate, but I think it's probably a good idea if I get on that. Just give my 2 cents. And I'm gonna agree with you. I think it's too many regulations.
Especially just off the bat, our industrial park is already we want to save room for real industrial purposes, so. Unless we're gonna annex the county's industrial park.
And if any of you have suggestions or thoughts, not necessarily on specific people, but makeup of the balance of the committee, anticipate that I will participate. Drew, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I'm guessing you may want to be on the committee as well, but so Drew can come up with relevant staff, but I think we need to think about whether you want to have certain members of the public, and do we want to post it and solicit, or do you want to just people know some people that would be appropriate? How would you like to form the balance of the committee?
I would say previously it was a little bit different because there were people, I think, looking at the marijuana industry more from a retail lens, more as a money-making operation. And there were people in the community who were definitely opposed to it. So that committee, while it was, probably 8 to 10 people, was really diverse in terms of opinion. The discussions I felt were really rich. So I think it is somewhat different. And I think I asked the question probably a month ago now to Linda whether or not anybody asked about a license for a facility. We still haven't had that.
About what? I'm sorry.
A license to open a facility. Because those initially, in terms of marijuana, those were the folks that really wanted to be a part of the discussion, of course, right? And we don't have that now. So I also don't necessarily want this to be in a vacuum. I think that the public should be there. I think that putting it out in some way, shape, or form, or like Pat even suggested, if we know someone that has a keen interest or knowledge regarding this, that maybe they should be invited to be a part of it.
It is my understanding that the state is the one that issues the licenses, and I'm not sure that the city is going to be allowed to issue licenses and regulate that way. Is that correct, Counselor?
We can't prohibit somebody who has a state license from operating, but we can, again, restrict their timing and their location.
Okay.
And some of the more details of the manner of which they operate. But yeah, I think we need to figure out, do we want to do it as a license or a permit? I mean, I think that's all. You could have a state license and a local license. Obviously, with alcohol, the state is the license authority, but the local government is who issues it. And so it would be a little different in that regard. But yeah, I think that's something that obviously we need to flesh out.
I think it would, for the committee, to go back to that, it would be helpful to invite like mental health professionals in our community, like Access Health, other people, counselors, and that might be interested in either becoming, I think they call it a micro center, or recommending clients to a facility like that.
And I would hate to have, like, force somebody from the PD, somebody from law enforcement to be a part of it, but at least be invited to some of the meetings where that topic would make sense. Like, what are the implications if someone were to leave 2 hours after they've had a treatment, for example, potentially? I think that would be an important voice at some point. But I don't necessarily want to commit, the interim chief or anybody to meet twice a month for the next 6 months either.
I would say that things go to committee to die frequently, and that the larger the committee, the more unwieldy it becomes. One person can't attend, is it canceled? It goes on and on and on. It would be my vote or my recommendation to say, get some key people from the council that are interested, council to also participate, and keep it to a minimum initially. And then before the rollout, open it wide open for public comment. We concentrate the public comment, the comment from whatever interested people they may be, whether they're licensees or whatever, to come before us and speak before we finalize anything, because ultimately it's going to lie on us. And we've got a lot of work in this thing. This is a huge issue for us, and it's going to take a lot of concentrated effort. And I just don't want us to get bogged down in emotions when it comes to this. So that would be my recommendation.
I mean, I think in my experience with the committees we've made here with the public, I'm thinking of my working with the South Broadway group. We actually had quite a large group from the community that came in the land use code, and it was really helpful to have those people there in the early conversations. And it wasn't a situation where we're like, oh, so-and-so can't come tonight, so we're going to cancel the meeting. It was still able to move forward. And in my 3 years on council, I've seen many other committees also include the public and other people to get more people involved and more community input and opinion, and they've all moved forward into fruition of some. To me, I think involving people earlier is nicer.
Could we start big and then get small? Or?
It's a council call. I don't know that there's a wrong answer.
I think starting big and then getting small would be difficult, because who are you going to tell you can't be here anymore?
Okay.
Your opinion doesn't matter anymore. I like the fact it's a smaller group. I do like the fact that we invite the community, but a smaller group can get so much more done, because then you don't get off on these, you don't get sidetracked. And so I would like to see it start off smaller and grow as interest grows.
I think for the land use code, Rachel, did we have 9 originally?
Should be on.
Okay, can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So for the land use code, we kept it kind of small. It was like a working committee. But each time we would meet with them, we would have a set of things to discuss with them. And I think that helped move things along. It was a little kind of similar with the South Broadway, but we tried to get, it was quite large. We had about 18. And, but I think once again, we had specific questions to ask them along the way, and that helped move it along as well. So I guess it depends. We've had a few housing committees where the housing needs assessment, which we pivoted from that to the housing action plan, and kind of the same thing. So yeah, I don't have much guidance for you guys. I guess whatever you want to do. I think one of the key things for us was just having a staff or consultant to help move the conversation forward.
And I think one cautionary tale would be that I would suggest you want at least 8 or 9, usually an odd number is better, because inevitably, especially if it becomes a 6-month process, 2 or 3 people don't show up, not the same 2 or 3, but you get absences, and so then you're down to sometimes 5 or 6. You get a lot done with those 5 or 6, but I don't think you want to get down to where you have 3 or 4 is all that shows up, because then it puts a lot of work on those, and oftentimes it might be just the council members and some staff that show up, but
Which is my concern. I don't want it to look like the city council and city staff made the decisions around it without transparency, without it being open. I mean, you can invite the public to show up until the cows come home, but if they're not a part of the boots on the ground process, then easily somebody could come back and say, well, that's great that you all made the decision without much public input at all. So I'm really concerned about that, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen. And then I would just again say that as specific questions arise, find the people who know the answer and bring them in to meet with the committee. Even if we have to bring them from Denver and put them up in a hotel for that meeting or Zoom in or whatever we do, that's really important. I'm worried that, I just want to make sure we're not doing this in isolation.
Okay, so we're trying to find like a number for the committee. I feel like we still just need to find people, because there may not be that many we can actually solicit, but I would say key players would be like law enforcement and their concerns, the mental health professionals, whether they're, what their perspective is, without the assumption that they're for or against, but just getting their perspective, and council. And then I guess, people from the public who are either interested or against or both, or neutral.
Well, I think what we can do is put together a kind of a core committee like that, and then we will need to post it, and then I think we just openly invite the community, and then it's there, it's open, it's just like one of these meetings, the offering is there to everybody.
Okay.
you can see the overwhelming interest at this meeting, which was posted, so.
Right.
But, okay, well, we'll do that, and I guess if you have questions or comments that would help me improve this, on this worksheet, some obvious ones, go ahead, I would suggest fill it out, give it to me, and we can, keep a working draft of the ordinance going and have a framework that the committee can look at to start things off with, and I think that would help them. But certainly if you have some serious concerns or agreements with some of the stuff, then perhaps let us know. And
Before we leave this, County Commissioner, can you speak to any information you might have regarding the county health department being involved with the collection of the statistics and the data that is allowed for in this in this bill, or whatever you want to call it? Because it's my understanding that there are provisions included in this where the county health can cooperate and coordinate with local hospitals and the like, as far as usage and overdoses and accidental ingestions and that sort of data that I think on a public health perspective is going to be very important to us, and we might be able to coordinate with the county in some aspect as far as we move forward on this task force.
Sure. Our health department, we just did a community health assessment, and those questions weren't really on there. So this is just as new to them as it is to you. I'm sure they'd be willing to help you along with social services, VA. I would even get a hold of the judiciary bunch, the judges, to see what they're dealing with. EMS plays a big part in this. They run on all of this stuff. Your mental health people, and even the DA's office. I mean, they're there to help, but to put them on your committee, I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, you can form 9 to 11. We had the hospital district at one time was supposed to have 17, but it was ruled too heavy and too big. It was really ungainly. So, but I don't know if the VA bunch would help you much. They kind of behind this, but I'm sure they would have access to information. You bet.
Thanks. So I was wondering, Counselor, are you going to be the one that's going to be kind of pulling this together for us? Are you going to be, because this has to do with an ordinance, or who's going to be sort of pulling this together? Who would be inviting these people that we've all talked about?
I think between Mr. Sanders and myself and some other staff, we can pull together a kind of a draft committee makeup and get ultimate approval from council. So I think we've received quite a bit of suggestions, and now we'll have to do some legwork because there may be some of these people that were mentioned, or these departments, that are really interested and would appreciate being asked to serve. So we will see what they want to do.
Okay, do you need anything more from us? Or any more last questions?
I don't.
Okay, we will move on to be on our agenda, general council discussion. We'll go ahead and start with Dennis, because I know he's got something he wants to share with us.
This was on a Monday, and it was across from my house, and I just wanted to show everybody. Last year at this time, it was a vacant lot with a bunch of weeds, and now we have people enjoying the South Park. And I'm sorry about the video. I was trying out a new camera, but I just kind of wanted to show what it looks like. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. Kids are enjoying ball. We don't need a whole bunch of playground stuff, just a backstop and a welcoming attitude, and I think they will come. So it's a little dizzy at first, but it does get a little better. And it starts showing the people. We're all having a lot of fun. I could tell there was many from out of town, a lot of regulars. Most of the baseball players from Pee Wee were there, or not most, a lot. And I just thought it was kind of interesting to see our park and see what it was doing. And it only lasts about a minute more. But you can see everybody's parked along the sidewalk and just enjoying themselves.
I think we are having a little bit of a technical difficulty on the
Screens.
screens. Yours is
Mine's good.
Yours is okay.
Dennis's is clean, yeah.
Let me stop it here. Here we go. We're going to try it again. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's probably a little overwhelming for our memory system in there.
Okay.
So anyway, we'll quit, but anybody wants to look at it, it's, right now I'm showing a whole bunch of kids having a lot of fun. And I just wanted to share that with council.
And it looks nice and green. It's, I'm glad to see so many cars and so many people using that space.
And I will shut this down so that it doesn't interfere anymore.
Thank you, Dennis. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'm glad to see that that park is being utilized, and I think it is an asset to the south side of the community and really the region. Okay, any other discussion items? Okay, I just wanted to bring up, since Councilmember Pro Tem, or DeHaven missed our conversation about the charter. So there, we had been trying to bring forward an ordinance on allowing hybrid meetings. And then I think it was at our council retreat that Robert brought up using the charter approach, you know, or the charter revamp as the opportunity to discuss that instead of an ordinance. So I just wanted to, if you could give us, like, help brief DeHaven on that whole conversation of what the idea around the charter.
Sure, so the charter currently requires that council meetings be held at City Hall.
Well, no, not that part. I mean, like, how we're going to update the charter and why it was suggested to have that there instead of in an
Well,
ordinance.
and I won't speak for Councilmember Dobry, but I think his point was that because of that provision in the charter that says you shall meet at City Hall, without defining what at City Hall means, I think his position was that that means physically present at City Hall, and that if we adopt some modified ordinance that allows for anything other than meeting at City Hall, that might conflict with that charter provision. And so the suggestion was that if we want to go the way of allowing remote participation, we should probably clarify the charter provision that when it says at City Hall, that would include digital, appearance through video conference or other digital means. And obviously that the process will be that we spoke actually today about the formation of the committee for that, but you'll need to approve ballot measures in August and set it for not August, because we're not going for the November date, but it'll be the next April is when the election will be held for the charter amendments. And so if we want to propose changing that at City Hall language, that's when it would come up. And rather than doing an ordinance in the interim, I think Councilmember Dobry was suggesting that we should amend the charter first.
Again, I guess I'm trying to give her the background of, like, the whole process and amending the charter in general, and why that would be a good place for it if that's what we decide. I guess I'm trying to just get, like, ignore that piece, just like what's the whole plan for updating the charter?
Okay, so we've got to form a committee, and similar to the conversation you just had on the natural medicine, to review possible changes, deletions, amendments to the charter. Those will be put into a different ballot measure, suggested ballot measures, and the council will vote on the ballot measures and approve them by ordinance. And then it will be submitted to the ballot in January for voting by the voters in April at the municipal election.
Okay.
So-
I was just gonna say, does anyone have any more background? Because we were gonna break up the pieces so that like multiple, like, so that way it's not all or nothing, like either this passes, all of these updates to the charter, or none of it passes. But
Yeah.
we're gonna break it up into sections. And then Councilmember Dobry mentioned, like, have council direct the topics for the charter update, and then that way we're providing the guidance for the subcommittee of what they should focus on.
Sure. I think the committee can present to you areas in which the committee determined, or the public by submitting comments to the committee, have suggested changes are necessary or recommended. And I think then the council's job would then to be to whittle it down and perhaps make sure the committee is doing its job in organizing the different, because we don't want 50 ballot questions, but if we had 10 or 12, and some of them, like, and perhaps this is one that would have to be a standalone, because there may be people that have strong views on either side of this issue, and make it a standalone amendment that would be considered. But I think some of the cleanup will just be typographical and updating, the pronouns, so we don't use he for everything. That sort of thing, and I think those can be lumped into one group. I don't think there will be a lot of objection to that sort of thing, but some of them may be more controversial, and so they may be more appropriate for standalone ballot issues. But it'll all be in one ordinance, and council will have to vote on that ordinance to place however many individual ballot questions, or subsections of one ballot question, because again, you don't want one lightning rod to make all the changes go down the tube.
Okay, and I just wanted to give that update for Councilmember DeHaven, so she'd have a moment to comment. It doesn't have to be today, but just to update you on that whole process.
And
Or that whole idea that we haven't, yeah.
And I could provide it again. I did prepare a memo that kind of goes through the timeline of all this process. So if any of you need an additional copy of it, I can give that to you.
Okay. And I'm not saying that that's how we should approach this, because we still kind of have that ordinance tabled. I just wanted to bring that up as like an option to like kind of push this discussion more, because we still may bring that ordinance and not do this charter approach. Just wanted to put that out there. Okay.
And I would just remind council, if that's the direction it wants to go, we just need some clear direction on that as well. We're ready to bring that forward at any time.
Okay. All right, any other topics that? Okay, I think we're over on time, so let's end this meeting, and can we start at 7:40? Or do we need to start it right now?
Well, I think it'd be appropriate to have a quick break. Yes, it's not the end of the world to start slightly later in the same place.
Okay.